Tiger fans, welcome to another episode of the official Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club podcast, bringing you all the latest news, updates, and buzz surrounding your mighty JSU Tigers. I am the Corey C. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to be notified of all future episodes. Apple Podcasts and Spotify video users rate and review the show, and everyone. Go follow Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club on Facebook and Tiger Talk 1400 on Instagram and Twitter. It all helps the cause, which is the I love Jackson State University. And we are back with rivalry week. Obviously, Alcorn State University. We are headed down to the reservation. Should be an exciting day, a great game. And joining us to talk about those Braves, as usual, he is a familiar voice. You know who he is. He is the of Alcorn State Athletics, none other than Charles Edmond. Welcome back to Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Doing well. Excited to have you. Excited for this week in this game. You already know what goes down when it's Jackson State Alcorn week, so we're looking forward to it. But we want to talk about this team, kind of an up and down season for the Braves. Some will probably say this current iteration of the team is uncharacteristic of its recent success, but want to hear it from you, the horse's mouth, so to speak. So just got to give us your quick overview of how the season has gone so far.
The season hasn't gone like what would be expected. I mean, going into this year, for the first time in 7 years, the quarterback that we started with wasn't on the roster last year. We had Aaron Allen come in, the Louisiana Tech transfer. He came in the spring, wasn't on the roster last year. So he's a different type of dude. He's a different type of quarterback, not necessarily the running quarterback that we expected with the RPO stuff with Felix Harper and Noah Johnson and Lenore's Footman. So a little bit different. And, the key word is continuity, and trying to get all the pieces to fit. And so on the offensive side of the ball, it has been a challenge. And we're going to have, obviously we're going to play two quarterbacks today, we believe. And so that's going to be a little bit different, at the end of the season than what we expected, because Fred McNair is a guy that likes to stick with a quarterback. But we've had a quarterback transfer. We've had a quarterback get hurt, and he's out. Aaron Allen's out for the rest of the year. So it definitely is going to be something different with Trey Lawrence getting the start for the Braves. Defensively, a whole new staff with Cedric Thornton, who was our DC last year, going to Grambling. And so Cedric Thomas, the second tour of duty as the Braves defense guy, he brought in a whole new staff. So it took time for that to gel and develop, and it has. It has. The defense right now is carrying this team at this point in time. So this has been different. The pieces weren't exactly there coming through the offseason, new quarterback, new scheme. The continuity just took a little time, and it's still a work in progress. So, look, we had a great 6-year run, and, when you win 6 division titles in a row, I don't care what level, the SEC, the SWAC, it doesn't matter. It was a heck of a run, and now you got to kind of rebuild things, and it's been a tough rebuild for the Braves.
Definitely. And continuity, there's such a key word when you talk about this Alcorn State's program. Traditionally, it's definitely under the Coach Fred McNair era, always having stability at quarterback, not only stability, but always having that next guy waiting in the wings, the guy who kind of comes in and takes over, and you have that continuation going into the next season. So you talk about losing that this season. And you talk about Trey Lawrence as well, the sophomore quarterback from Jacksonville, who had to step in this year in place of Aaron Allen. So you go into the season with the new quarterback, and then he goes down, and you have to bring in Lawrence. So what are some differences between those two quarterbacks, and how did things change for the offense when Lawrence took the reins?
Well, with Aaron Allen, big arm, he could push the ball down the field. I saw his film when he was at Louisiana Tech. He could definitely push the ball down the field. I was told before he got here that he wasn't exactly the running quarterback that we expect, from a Felix Harper or Lenore Footman or Noah Johnson. But he was a pleasant surprise. A big guy, can actually motor with his feet a little bit and hard to bring down. So we saw a lot of that from him, getting outside of the pocket, escaping the pocket, and making some plays. So it definitely was a little bit different. But, when you look at Trey Lawrence, it's still kind of a work in progress for him, because he came in the Grambling game after Aaron Allen hurt his shoulder in that game. And it's kind of been a work in progress still. Last week, it got to a point where we brought in a kid from Meridian that was recruited as a quarterback at T. Adams, but then he was transformed into a wide receiver because we thought we had our quarterback situation. But now with Trey Lawrence still figure it out, just giving teams a different look. T. Adams, a kid from Meridian who definitely has some athleticism, using him a little bit. We saw a lot more of him last week in the game against Bethune-Cookman, especially on the goal line. So you'll probably see those two quarterbacks today. The offense hasn't changed. I mean, we still are a ground and pound team, whether
Mm-hmm.
it was on Walker years ago. This year is Jarvion Howard, who's been something special. The kid transferred from Syracuse, from Columbia, Mississippi. I mean, he's been something special. Hard to bring down, over 1,000 yards rushing, for this Braves team in just his first year with the program. He's got another year coming up next year. So
Okay.
for the Braves, it's ground and pound. That's what they do. That's where it starts. And if we can run the football, run with some efficiency, with some power, with some violence, we're a really good football team. When we can do that and not turn the football over. That's been our Achilles heel in the losses, the turnovers, whether it's Southern, whether it's Grambling, whether it's Texas Southern, the turnovers. And we had a couple of turnovers last week against Bethune-Cookman, but thankfully we're able to come out with a victory. So I think, for this offense, we've got to play smart. We have to be efficient, and we can't turn the football over, especially against a JSU team that can score points like they have been the last couple of years.
Definitely. And going back to that running game, an identity of the Braves over the past few years, you talked about Jarvion Howard, the Connolly Trophy nominee. Congratulations to him. SWAC Newcomer of the Year candidate. He's at 5.2 yards per carry, 1,174 yards rushing, 11 TDs. I know he has his name or is inching close to getting into the Alcorn State record books, but he's a Columbia, Mississippi native. Coach McNair definitely has a knack for going into that portal and getting some of those Mississippi guys to return home. But in addition to Howard, talk about a guy like a Nico Duffy, a guy who this season hasn't had the season that I would expect, hasn't put up the yards, but he in past seasons has been a key cog for you guys. So how has he fit into the equation?
Yeah, I mean, he still fits. I mean, I think it just depends on the situation, depends on where we are on the field. I mean, Nico is one of three running backs with Jarvion Howard and then Leatherwood. We'll see those two other guys, obviously Howard, Leatherwood, and Nico Duffy. But for Nico, it hasn't been a Nico Duffy-ish type of year for sure. I do think with the competition, with Jarvion Howard being as dominant as he's been, he's gotten the majority of the workload. But there are times in which Nico Duffy, he's got the explosion coming through. He's a little scat back and can really hard to chase when he gets in the open field. I think it's just been one of those years in which you have a back of Jarvion Howard who's just been so dominant, so awesome. It's hard to get him on the field. But I think, offensive coordinator Elliott Radden, Fred McNair, finding a way to get Nico Duffy involved. And I do expect him to have a big role in the game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. And let's go back to Lawrence for a second. One thing that stands out when you look at his numbers is the completion percentage, only around 38%. That's very atypical of a quarterback. So would you say that teams are really bringing the pressure and forcing him to make mistakes, or just a matter of everyone gelling? Or like in the case of Jackson State, despite Shedeur Sanders' high completion percentage, there's just been a lot of drop passes by the wide receivers.
I think it's just the acclimation process. I mean, Trey Lawrence coming in when he did in that Grambling game. Remember now, Fred McNair doesn't play two quarterbacks. If a quarterback is upright and healthy, he's going to get every single snap. So if Aaron Allen is healthy and productive, Trey Lawrence wouldn't be on the field. That's just he's just not a two quarterback coach like a lot of coaches are. You go with a guy and you stick with a guy, and we've had that over the years. So for Trey Lawrence, it's just about managing the game. Not doing anything too spectacular, not being a hero, not trying to lose the game, but just managing the game. You're going to see a lot of short stuff, a lot of dinks and dunks. If Jackson State crowds the box, you're going to have a lot of intermediate stuff. He's got to get the ball there. We've had some drops. There have been some receivers open. And I just think it's just timing. I mean, when you get all the reps in practice, but when you haven't had it in the game, it takes some acclimation. So I think that's going to be the key in a big game, a big rivalry game. He's going to be nervous. Jackson's going to bring the heat. They're going to bring the pressure up front, and that's where I think the game's going to be won or lost up front in the trenches. If our offensive line can protect and make Trey Lawrence comfortable, we can run the football. I think Trey will have a relatively decent game. I mean, do you expect him to throw for 300 yards? No. But if he doesn't turn the football over, just take what the defense gives him. I think he'll have a very productive game.
And speaking of that wide receiver unit, obviously that's a group that'll need to step up and help him out. Haven't seen much from CJ Bowler this season, only 18 catches, under 200 yards. You have a Malik Rogers, the Tulsa transfer, along with Juan Anthony. They've really kind of stepped in and led the team. So talk about that unit as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough. I mean, again, the quarterback position and trying to get the ball to the receivers, the offensive line trying to protect. It has been tough trying to push the ball down the field for sure. And it's mainly because we've been running the football so effectively. We haven't thrown it quite as much. And so, when you look at a guy like a Juan Anthony, for example, Juan Anthony Jr., he's a guy that can stretch the field. CJ Bowler has been out. He's been out off and on throughout the course of the season.
Okay.
The one guy though that I think that will be a target is Malik Rogers. He's really stepped up his game. He wears number 2. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. And the Braves are going to have to do that. They're going to have to get a bunch of people involved in the receiver core if they're going to have some success here today.
Yeah. So yeah, that offense will definitely need to get going against a tough Jackson State defense. They're averaging over 22 points per game, but obviously they'll need to definitely step that up. But the Alcorn State defense allowing 21 points per game, leading tackler Mr. Terrence Ellis. So talk to me about that unit. Obviously, we mentioned the change of defensive coordinators, Thornton going out, but a familiar face, familiar name coming in. So talk about that defensive unit.
Yeah, the defensive unit has been. I mean, I think a lot of people were concerned about Cedric Thomas making his second tour of duty at Alcorn. It's taken the defense some time. If you look at the Stephen F. Austin game early on, I think the Tulane game got a lot of people worried about this defense. We gave up 52 points, and they were moving up the ball, moving the ball up and down the field. But this defense has really gotten off the field when it has to. Okay. I think it started with the McNeese game, and you talk about Ellis. On the back end, you got K'Ron Kinsler, who's playing his final regular season game. One of a handful of seniors on that defensive unit. This Braves unit up front can get off the field when it has to. I think the key for this Braves defense is going to have to be, tackling. Tackling has been kind of an issue. Jackson State got a lot of skilled players all over the place. When Shador gets it to them, we're going to have to make the tackle. They're going to try to grab the pound. Got to make the tackle, put them behind the chain. So I think if the Braves unit up front gets the push, I think the back end will hold up their own, and in the middle with Terrence Ellis and company, I think everybody's got to play on the string because this Jackson State team can score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to get your thoughts on was Coach Fred McNair. Just this season, how has he been? It's difficult. He's a difficult man to read from the outside looking in. Very even keeled, regardless of the situation. But it's been an up and down season, and I'd imagine that's been quite challenging for him.
It is. I mean, it's been a tough year. I've talked to him every week, and this year is kind of wearing on him. Just all the losing. It doesn't help. But just the injuries and the things he's had to deal with, having to move guys around, working in a new quarterback, someone that wasn't on the roster last year. It's been very, very difficult, because we're just used to winning around here. When you win 6 straight division titles, you don't expect to fall off the cliff that quickly. I mean, you don't win all the time, but for it to happen in the way that it's happening right now in the second year. I mean, we didn't play couple of years ago, couple years last year, first year in the West, and then having this year happen the way that it's happened, it's been tough. It's wearing on everybody, on fans, on players, coaches, on me, because I'm a fan. I'm a LA Rams fan. The Rams won the Super Bowl last year, and I expect them to get back up there. Although I
don't know.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But we didn't expect this type of year that we're having right now. So it's tough on It's tough on everybody. You look at the losses we suffered. We suffered 2 losses to teams that aren't even in a division hunt. You look at
that's the strange thing.
Yeah, and then the Texas Southern loss at home on homecoming really sticks out in a lot of people's gut. But Texas Southern improved program. You're going to have a quarterback that's going to be really good the next couple of years in Andrew Body. So, I mean, it's been difficult losses, some winnable games. The Texas Southern game was winnable. The Southern game was winnable. The Grambling game, we just didn't have it that day. So I think that's what's difficult, for Braves fans. When you're used to winning, you're not used to losing. And so we're not in the conversation per se. We need a lot of help to win the Western Division. Got to have Prairie View lose. Got to have Southern lose the Bayou Classic. It may not even matter at the end of the day. If Prairie View wins the game against Mississippi Valley, they'll win the West. Doesn't matter what else happens, and their game will be ahead of our game, so we'll get a chance to follow. But it has been difficult. It's been difficult, no question about it. And we'll see what happens at the end of the season. But we got to figure some things out if we're going to get back up there, because Gramblin's going to be better, Texas Southern's going to be better, Eric Dooley, he's going to be better. So, all across the board, we're going to have to be better, and hopefully, we'll be able to do that in the off.
So talk about the resiliency of this team. It was obviously a tough stretch in the middle of the season with those 3 straight SWAC losses, Southern, Texas Southern, and Grambling, that could have potentially eliminated this team. I know it had to, just hurt from just a mental standpoint, but they bounced back with a big win over Prairie View and followed by a win over Bethune-Cookman. So they're riding a 2-game winning streak into the Soul Bowl. But during that 3-game losing streak, a lot of teams could kind of fold, shut it down at that point, but they continue to fight. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this team has continued to battle. I think it's just the self-inflicted mistakes. We beat right now the best team in the West in Prairie View on a Friday night on a short week, and we were really good not turning the football over. But the games that we lost, we turn it over, whether it's a fumble on kickoff return or whether it's 3 interceptions against Texas Southern. We had a couple of turnovers against Bethune that could have cost us. But, we have to play a clean game. And I think for this team, if they just do that, if they play a clean game, we can win many games. But I think sticking with it, Coach McNair is one of those guys. He just doesn't get rattled. He's not he doesn't bothered. He hears the noise, but he sticks to what he believes in as a coach. And you watch and you talk to many a coach, they know what they believe in. They feel comfortable about it, and they believe in it, despite the fact that sometimes you don't always win. And I think for Coach McNair, he sticks with his principles. He doesn't get rattled. He's unflappable. And so far, we're riding a 2-game winning streak. And if we win this game, it's going to be a whole bunch of talk and a lot of celebrating going on around here. And I think, for that to happen, we're going to have to play really, really well, because Jackson State is really, really good. They blow the doors off the game in the second half. We got to get them in the first half. Got to get them on skates a little bit. So we'll see how it goes down.
Absolutely. And last but not least, let's talk about this atmosphere, this expected atmosphere and environment down on the reservation with Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, coming into town. He's talked about looking forward to it. We're really looking forward to the entire SWAC tour, visiting all of the college, the campuses. But I'd imagine this will be one of the more festive atmospheres and biggest crowds in a while. I mean, obviously for those of us who can go back to Steve McNair days, we know what that was like. But most recently, I think games against Southern and then obviously hosting the SWAC championship game has probably been the bigger games on campus. But what do you expect as far as this atmosphere is concerned?
I've been doing this for a minute. I was around when the late Steve McNair was here and breaking all the records and the hype and the hoopla around that. And this game kind of mimics that.
Wow.
In terms of being on campus at 1:00 in the morning for a 2:00 game in the afternoon, some 13 hours before the game kicks off, people are coming to campus. It's that type of atmosphere. And I get it. I understand why. As a team like Alcorn that's been dominant for a 6-year stretch, and then Jackson State rolls in here, second straight division title. You got Coach Sanders and all the hype and hoopla behind that. And so I get all of that. And so when we were on the positive end of it, it was just the opposite. Folks were anticipating this game. We had already won the division. But now it's the other way. Now Jackson's won the East. And now they're going to the championship game. And so their fans want to come and have a good time here. And I think you have to give credit to the university and just this atmosphere we have here. It's a great place where people want to come and just hang out and have a good time. And I think that's what makes this, such a nice place to play and come. Got to get here early, though, because once the traffic... usually on homecoming, I'll say this, I kind of time it out a little bit. We play at 2:00 on homecoming with the parade starting around 9:00. After about 6 in the morning, traffic is just unbelievable. My guess is for this game, it's probably going to be anywhere after 4 a.m.
Wow.
If you arrive after 4, pack your patience, because I think everybody's expecting a huge crowd and people want to get ahead of it. So I'll be on campus probably about 2:30, 3:00 in the morning, and I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do when I get here. But I'm not a big traffic guy. Traffic in major cities,
right?
I hate traffic anywhere, and so I want to get here early. But it's going to be a great environment. The weather hopefully will be fine. It'll be a little on the coolish side, but it's Alcorn, Jackson State. Our alumni, if there's one game they want to win, it's this game with Jackson. And I'm sure for Jacksonians, if it's one game they want to win, it's against Alcorn. So that's what helps build this game up, and that's what makes the game special. And I'm looking forward to it. I think the Braves are going to play their best game of the year in this game. Got to avoid the mistakes if they want to have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Jack State, we're looking forward to it as well. Game we want to have things on defeated historic season, but I noticed a lot of when I was top. A lot of times when this game comes up, already Clint typically look at it as a must-win game for the show, and we're looking forward to amazing. At the end, but we appreciate Edmund for joining the show as always. And that'll do episode Talk with the 1400 Club. Thank you to all of our listeners. And again, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Apple Podcasts and Spotify video users rate the show on Facebook and Tiger Talk 1400 on Instagram and Twitter. We're looking to do some platform the athletics department, and it all starts with you. Every time, all podcast outlets, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify video, YouTube, and so on. And we'll be posting each episode on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. As always, thanks for your support. Go Tigers. #I believe. #the I love.